And a very good evening to you. Welcome to Politics 101. Good night to you wherever you are, where it's late at night. It's I know in Europe, in England, it's now going on to morning after midnight. After midnight. Welcome to Politics 101. A brand new week. A brand new week. A brand new week. Politics 101. A brand new week. And we're kicking it off tonight. Lots of stuff happening. As always, there's never a dull moment. Never a dull moment in Guyanese politics. Good evening to you in Guyana, whether you're joining us from the quarantine or you're joining us from way in the interior. Essequibo, Region 8, Region 9, Region 7, Region 1. Those of you who are joining us from Region 2, the Essequibo Coast and the Essequibo Islands, welcome to Politics 101. And in the heart where most of our people reside, Region 3, Region 4, Region 5, Region 6. And welcome. And of course, the people in Region 10, Kwakwani and Everton and Linden, of course, welcome. Welcome to Politics 101. We've got some visitors, I notice. Mr. Pompeo, Mike Pompeo, is visiting Guyana on a private visit, and he met with the president. Mr. Pompeo is on a private visit. Wow. Former Secretary of State Pompeo, who was very much part of the regime change in 2020. Remember, he visited in his capacity of Secretary of State, as Secretary of State, immediately after the 2020 election. And then, of course, Mr. Trump lost the election, and now Mr. Pompeo is a private citizen, and he's visiting Guyana in his private capacity, meeting with the president. He met with the president in his private capacity. Yo. Tonight we're going to have Apostle Nigel London on. He's going to be on with us tonight. And we are going to be focusing on Linden in the first part of our conversation. A lot has been happening in Linden. You know, they've been trying to foist the that county clock, city clock. What am I saying? County clock. The town clock. The PPP has been trying to foist their selection for a town clock on Linden, and there've been some pushback by the Linden Town Council and people in Linden in general. We're going to talk to Nigel London about that. And then the government has unveiled a set of projects, in particular the Linden Bridge, Wisma Mackenzie Bridge, and some other projects there. Of course, you know, these projects are election projects. So the buy-in, the attempt to buy continues. The attempt to buy opposition supporters, the attempt to buy Black people, the attempt to buy Linden people. Oh boy. So we're going to be talking to Apostle London about that. And then we are going to also zero in on some of the topical issues, So welcome to Politics 101 on a Monday night. A brand new week, the second week of January, and the second week of the year already. We are settling in into 2024. The word this week is equality. Part of our struggle in Guyana is a struggle for equality. Political equality, economic equality, cultural equality. And the means by which we get that equality is to have an equitable system. Ultimately, we want equality, political equality, economic equality, cultural equality. We want class equality, social class. We want to close the gap between the rich and the poor to make our society much more equal. We want racial equality, closing the gap between the ethnic groups, the economic gap. The economic gap between the ethnic groups, of course, is a function of our historical evolution. So we want to close the racial gap. We want to close the gap between the rich and the poor. We want to close the gender gap. Men still earn more than women for the same work that we all do. It is so in the developed world. It is so in the developing world. It is so in countries like Guyana. So gender equality, racial equality, class equality, they're all wrapped up together. Of course, our society is a racialized society, an ethnicized society. So all of that is played out through the prism of race. But you see, unlike some other people, I do not say race is false consciousness. Race is not false consciousness. That's where I get into trouble, or people like me get into trouble with others. Race is real. Ethnicity is real. Those race and ethnicity do not mask class inequalities or gender inequalities. Gender inequalities and class inequalities are wrapped up in racial and ethnic equality. At one time I used to believe that theory, I used to believe that, don't worry with race, the real problem is class and the real problem is gender. Hogwash. I've come to realize it's nonsense. And I'm going to upset some of my Marxist friends and so on. But race is not false consciousness. Class is not false consciousness. Gender is not false consciousness. They're all real consciousness. But in society like ours, to get to understand gender and understand class, you have to go through race. That's all it is. In some societies, in order to understand race and gender, you have to go through class. Equality, equal rights and justice. Good evening, my brother Ozia. You're in the motherland. I envy you, my brother. I envy you. Sister Danette Booker, good evening. Rastaman is always here. My brother Vibert White. We haven't had a little drink in a long time, Vibert. We'll have to do something about that. Welcome to Politics 101. Equality is what we want to focus on this week. Equality.
A former member of the Matra Dimes, very experienced female entertainer, Calypso Queen of the World on 5 occasions. Would you please put your hand together? Let's welcome Singing Francine.
Thank you. Hate, greed, color, racism is destroying the universe. I am totally against that. The title of my song, Equal Rights. That's my contribution for the evening, ladies and gentlemen. 1, 2. I've studied days and nights. I've studied blacks and whites on the question of equal rights. I say I studied days and nights, studied blacks and whites on the question of equal rights. Well, after careful consideration, meditation has brought me to one conclusion. The old, the young, the weak and the strong, only fighting a battle of equal wrong. Because everyone is born equal, with an equal right to be born. And everyone is equal, so don't treat each other with scorn. The color of your skin doesn't mean a thing. Live and love and be satisfied. You already have your rights, so there is no need to fight. The right to live is the right to die. Thank you. It is a simple case that we cannot face. We all belong to the human race. So you can tell your bud, we all are made of mud, equivalently equal by flesh and blood. So what's the use of all this confusion, discrimination and fight for worldly possession? The rich, the poor, the weak and the small are equal in size when the master call. That's right. Everyone is born equal, with an equal right to be born. And everyone is equal, so don't treat your brother with scorn. We have the same earth to live, the same life to give, and yet we will not unite. We ought to be ashamed to play a dirty game and then talking about equal rights. Some folks may think me rude. Now I must conclude with those who show such ingratitude. The breath of life we share, the sun, the moon, and air are equal rights given to us here. We may not be the same in culture, skill, and name, or in habits, fortune, and fame. No matter who, why, what, when, and where. Now show me a man that's unequal here. Everyone is born equal, with an equal right to be born. And everyone is equal, so don't treat each other with scorn. No matter what you possess, well, you don't have to guess. The master said, let there be light. Someday you will agree. Just take time and see. Everyone has an equal life. Boom, boom, boom. Now there are foolish men who know but still pretend the laws of nature try to amend. No matter what you feel, the truth you can't conceal. And for sure, what is real is real. We may not be the same in culture, skill, and name, or in habits, fortune, and fame. No matter who, why, what, when, and where, just show me one man that is equal here. Everyone is born equal, with an equal right to be born. And everyone is equal, so don't treat your sister with scorn. We may differ in looks, in language, in shape, in ways, or even in height. But please don't forget, in life or in death, everyone has an equal life. Boom, boom. Love is the answer. Love is the only answer. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I love you.
Singing Francine. Francine Edwards, born in Barbados, grew up and spent our musical journey in Trinidad and Tobago. My God, what a voice. What a voice. She's one of the few singers that you can hear every word. Tremendous voice, unparalleled, singing Francine, making the case for equality. Equality in diversity. She accepts that, we are different. And in terms, sometimes when there's difference there, we don't measure up at the same time. Sometimes you are there, sometimes you're there, but we are equal. And she locates the equality in nature. In nature. Those of you who are religious will say, in God. God made us equal. The greatest music in the world, Calypso, the mother music of the English-speaking Caribbean. All of our other musics come from there, whether it be reggae or spooge or whatever. They come from the Calypso. And there is no other music in the world that tells a story like Calypso, that comments on politics like Calypso, that takes us to the root like Calypso. Mashramani is coming up, so we're going to be getting into a lot of Calypso in Guyana already. Roger Hines, young Bill Rogers, he has already sent me his songs that he's going to do this year. I'm going to try to get him on. I'm going to try to see if I can get a couple of others on. So we are going to do some samples of Guyanese Calypso as we go ahead. Equality. I was making the point before Singing Francine came on about race, class, and gender. And I was taking issue with a lot of my comrades and peers who dismiss race, and race is false consciousness. The real thing is class. I'm always guided by C.L.R. James, who was your quintessential Marxist, and believed that class was it. But here is James. James said, and I quote, "The race question is subsidiary to the class question in politics. And to think of imperialism in terms of race is disastrous. But to neglect the racial factor as merely incidental is an error only less grave than to make it fundamental." C.L.R. James was a 3 cents man. the dialectics there. So James starts off by saying, look, the race question is subsidiary in politics, but to neglect it is a grave error. I'm guided by James on this. They don't like us to talk about race in Guyana. Because when you talk about race, you expose racism. And those who are engaged in the business of racism don't like to be exposed. So when you talk about class and gender inequalities, which are there in Guyana, class inequalities there in Guyana, gender equality, but they're glad when you talk about class inequality. They're glad when you talk about gender inequality. Because you then don't get to focus on the racial inequality. They will tell you, oh, well, we come out of colonialism and we are closing the gap between the social classes. We are doing well. We have come a long way. But the minute you begin to talk about racial inequality, which is where the proof of the pudding of inequality is in Guyana. So we are talking about equality. We're talking about equality this week. We are focusing on equality. We're going to be joined shortly by Apostle London, and we're going to be talking about what's happening in Linden and further afield. Mr. Pompeo is visiting Guyana. You see, I like to pull wool over our eyes. You see, when they come down on the people at Linden, those the Linden people. The Linden people, before there was Linden, there was people. No, sir? Before there was Linden, there were people. And the people at Linden are predominantly of one ethnic group. So when you talk about what's happening at Linden, outside of ethnicity, outside of race, you're making a grave error. That's what C.L.R. James is arguing there. The government in Guyana is of one ethnicity. Linden is of another ethnicity. Are we guided by the principle of equality in diversity? If we were, then we would not have a one-race government. You can't be a one-race government and then say you are for equality. If you are for equality, you wouldn't be a one-race government in the first place. You see, that's a contradiction. You are a one-race government, and then you say, I am trying to unite the people. How can you be of one side, having power over the other side, and say, I want to unite with you? You are only going to be united by those who you have power over on your terms. If we had racial equality and racial unity, and if we were guided by the principle and the philosophy of equality, then we wouldn't have a one-race government. The fact that we have a one-race government says very plainly the nature of our society. And nowhere in the world, nowhere in human history, and I challenge anybody to contradict me, nowhere in human history as one people of one ethnic group or one racial group brought about equality on their own with another ethnic group. Nowhere in the world. Once you have power in your hand, you are not going to use that power in the interest of your competitor. Pure and simple. That is why the PPP cannot, will not govern in the interest of all Guyana, and by extension, the PNC. will not, cannot govern in the interests of all Guyana. You see, I recognize that our political system is a winner-take-all system. A majoritarian system. So one party gonna get in and one gonna stay out. I recognize that. And if I had my way, I will change that tomorrow. But I also recognize that in our culture, that's a hard thing to change. So I am saying, what is the best route, given what we have? That is, that if as an ethnic group, you hold the power because the system gives you the power, then what you have to do is to buck the system. Say, look, the system give me this power, but I am not going to work the power as the system says I should do it. I will work it in an equitable way. I am going to bring in the other side as the system suggests. I am not going to make decisions without the other side as the system suggests, even though it doesn't say so in wording. I am not going to go into Linden and try to shove anything down the people of Linden throat, because those people didn't vote for me. And if I am driven by the need for equality and justice, I am going to sit down with the Linden representatives, whether the national level or the Linden level. The PPP is not doing that. So this nonsense that one race could win power and then bring about equality and unity is nonsense. The PNC nor the PPP cannot bring about one Guyana. They're half of Guyana, each of them. How you can be half of Guyana and bring about one Guyana? That is the trickery we are into. But we got to work with what we have. We got to work with what we have. And in working with what we have to be driven by is a sense of fairness and justice. When Granger and the coalition were there, they made some efforts towards inclusion. They made some efforts. They made more efforts than the PPP is making now. Could the Granger government have done more? Yes, they could have done more. But this government, the PPP government, is not making any effort to govern in an inclusive way. The idea is that the majoritarian system produces a winner. But you have to win power and not use the power to knock down other people. You win power to bring people in. You don't win power to exclude them and then call that democracy and one Guyana. It is not. My 2 cents tonight: equal rights and justice. Equal rights and justice. Pastor Brandon is almost ready. Almost ready for us. Equal rights and justice. We're bringing in Pastor London in 30 seconds.
Female entertainer. Calypso Queen of the World on 5 occasions.
Against that. The title. I've studied days and nights, I've studied blacks and whites on the question of equal rights. I say I studied days and nights, studied blacks and whites on the question of equal rights. Well, after careful consideration, meditation has brought me to one conclusion. The old, the young, the weak and the strong, only fighting a battle of equal wrong. Because everyone is born equal, with an equal right to be born. And everyone is equal, so don't treat each other with scorn. The color of your skin doesn't mean a thing. Live and love and be satisfied. You already have your rights, so there is no need to fight. The right to live is the right to die. Thank you. It is a simple case that we cannot deface. We all belong to the human race. So you can tell your bud, we all are made of mud, equivalently equal by flesh and blood. So what's the use of all this confusion, discrimination and fight for worldly possession? The rich, the poor, the weak and the small are equal in size when the master call. That's right. Everyone is born equal, with an equal right to be born. And everyone is equal, so don't treat your brother with scorn. We have the same earth to live, the same life to give, and yet we will not unite. We ought to be ashamed to play a dirty game and then talking about equal rights.
We ought to be ashamed to play a dirty game and then talk about equal rights. Ah! Singing Francie died a year ago. She's not in Guyana. We ought to be ashamed to play a dirty game and then talk about equal rights. And the PPP is into equal wrongs, not equal rights. Not, I didn't coin the term. You all hear it from Singing Francine. Equal wrong. Equal wrong means wrong. Equal rights mean right. But try as I may, I don't have the cadence of the prophets. You know, I always talk about the real deal, you know, the politicians of old, you know, the Burnhams and the Eric Williams and them, you know, the Guyanas and them. You know, they are the language of the folk, and they mix that up with the language of the educated folk. And then they're putting that in the cadence of the biblical folk. That's why they were bad like that. Some of them the wicked, politically, I mean, right? Wicked politically. But in terms of communication, the language of the folk mixed up with the language of the educated folk and the cadence of the biblical prophets. That's why they call them charismatic, that big word. Right? I will never be like that. But my guest tonight comes very close to being like that. My brother, peace.
Brother.
Happy New Year. How do we say it in Hebrew?
Well, we say Rosh Hashanah, but that doesn't happen now. It happens in September, or we have Pesach, which happens in spring. Our New Year doesn't occur in the winter time in the colder regions of the world. But I appreciate it nonetheless.
Thank you. And in the spirit of tradition, Happy New Year to you in our Guyanese West Indian tradition. That I think as you know, Christmas is Christian, but you know, we have made it in the Caribbean, in Guyana, to be more than Christian. You know, as the Traders would say, it's traditional. We've made it traditional.
Just that you're there. Sorry, but just interesting that you've been there. Had a discussion with an older guy yesterday, who was unaware that 300 or so years ago, even the U.S. did not celebrate January 1st as a new year because of contention with Britain. So they were really against that. And I also informed him that at Christmas time was the only time when our people, the African descendants, the Hebrew people on the slave plantations, had a chance to have a day off. So I'm not moved to celebrate those things given what I understand regarding history.
Yes, you're quite right. I always make reference to African Americans, to some extent, we in the Caribbean, but more than African Americans, that they're more into Easter. They're more into Easter, they're more into the crucifixion, because that was their experience. And then they're more into the symbolism of the resurrection, because that's their experience. And they put their best clothes, the nicest suit for Easter, not Christmas. Christmas is not the big deal for African Americans. It's Easter. It's the suffering on the cross, and then overcoming that suffering, the resurrection. The symbolism of Easter resonates more with people who suffer. And African Americans to this day still hold Easter in that esteem. And I think to some extent we in Guyana hold that tradition too, although we may be more into the Christmas thing, because you know it was the day we got off and so on and so forth and so on. But it's interesting, the symbolism of these things. I think Pastor Linden is back with us now. Pastor Linden, equal wrongs. What do you make of that?
What an interesting song. I was actually laughing throughout, because the Calypsonians are able to capture our reality so well, and to some degree I think some of them do it prophetically, because even though they may not experience it at that time, who would think that in our history at this time we can see the perfection of singing Francine's song, Equal Wrongs.
We've lost your audio. While Apostle Linden, we're still not hearing you. Apostle Linden is having some difficulty there. We're still not hearing him. The prophetic tradition is very much part of the Black tradition. If you are in bondage, you have to be prophetic. You have to imagine freedom. You have to be prophetic. And so the prophetic tradition is very much part of the Black tradition. The prophecy. You know, the Rastafarians trace their origins back to Marcus Garvey. And Garvey had written this play that he acted in. And in that play, he prophesied that there would be a king, a Black king shall rise in the East. Garvey prophesies that. And so when Emperor Haile Selassie, Rastaman is on. Rastaman know the story better than me. Yes, there was some audio with Pastor London. We're getting that fixed, but I hope you all are hearing me. Yes. Rastaman know the story better than me. So when these people in Jamaica, when they saw the coronation of Emperor Selassie in 1930, they linked Garvey's prophecy and they said, that's the king that Garvey prophesies about. So that prophetic tradition that Pastor London was talking about just now is very much part of the Black tradition. I mean, more than any other group, prophecy is very much part of the Black canon, the Black experience, because of that unique experience of enslavement. If you are enslaved in the way that our people were enslaved, you have to imagine, you have to keep imagining. That's where the Calypso came from. The ability to imagine another world is possible. That is where Calypso came from. Reggae came later. Reggae came after the prophecy was fulfilled. Reggae is a modern music. Calypso is the mother music. But I think my brother is back here.
Yes,
Pastor London?
Yes. Many, I'm still here.
Yes. Keep talking to us about that prophetic tradition that you were talking about there in relation to singing Francine, but generally.
Yes, thank you. Let me first say thanks again. It would be remiss of me if I do not say thank you for having me here. And to those who are so committed to viewing your broadcasts and sharing these platforms with you, I'm certainly grateful that I could be included in that number. Singing Francine spoke to, as I said, prophetically, what I never envisioned, where we can have equal wrongs, and to some extent being presented as though they're rights.
Yes.
The scriptures speak to the one who has no sin, let him cast the first stone. It's a very popular saying now. And that was really directed to people who felt that they had the right to point the finger at somebody else, say that you're wrong. In that situation of singing Francine's song, I realized that there is one group of people who stand to suffer the most. And it's unfortunate that the equal wrongs are not only perpetrated by those who have the power to do it. And once they have that power, they are least affected by the same. I do not know of any political figure in this country who gets no salary, apart from when they had a fiasco in the uproar in Parliament the other day. But it's abnormal for that to happen. So they may do many things, and they do not lose to the extent to which, as we would say, the small man would. But I was enjoying that song. It really spoke to a reality that is very unfortunate for our people. Equal wrongs. That would be with me for quite a while.
Yes. You know, and to our Rastafarian brethren here, some of you are commenting quite rightly so. Yes, I don't think we always locate the Rastafarians where they are supposed to be located, at the center of our cultural resistance in the 20th century, you know.
Correct.
And taking that prophecy of freedom, Marcus Garvey, you know, taking that prophecy, and the people there in Jamaica who went up to Pinnacle, all 1,600 and odd, led by Leonard Howell, and really extending the prophecy. And it is out of that reggae music came. So in a sense, reggae music is an extension of the prophecy of Calypso music. And so they're inextricably linked. Equal wrongs. That's what we're talking about tonight. My brother, there's some wrongs happening in Linden. And from as long as I have known myself following public things, wrongs are always directed at Linden people. It doesn't matter which government in power, wrongs are always directed at Linden people. And it has to do with the location of Linden in the political cosmos and the political psyche of the country. And I want you to talk us through that before we get to the wrongs, because I think you're a scholar and a student of the peculiarity of Linden in a peculiar place, called Guyana. But Linden is a peculiar place in a peculiar space called Guyana. Over to you.
Thank you. It indeed is. And I'm beginning to wonder sometimes. I would ask myself whether Linden is a country within Guyana, as the Vatican would be in Italy, because there is a consistent targeting of this Linden, this place called Linden. I hope that you can hear me clearly.
Yes, I'm hearing you.
And the unfortunate reality for us here is that we are so strategically located, both culturally, both culturally and economically. We are strategically located, even politically. Linden is a very, very critical component in the experience called Guyana. And there are wrongs, for example, let me say one, the Mackenzie Sports Club, a mecca of sports in this country, who produce a place where we know the most Olympians this country's ever seen would have run in that facility. And they were born in Linden. Some of them may have been bred in Linden. That mecca has been torn down.
We're having some bandwidth problems there with Apostle London tonight, but we're going to bear with way. We're going to work through it. It's the reality of our country, but he's going to be back talking about Linden. Walter Rodney called Linden the cradle of the working class. That if ever there was the working class in which it was defined by Marx and Lenin and others, Linden fitted that categorization, and that Linden is really a coming together of Guyana. It's really West Bobis and East Coast, and people from other parts of the coast, but primarily from the East Coast and the West Coast, and the West Coast Bobis, who relocated there as workers in the industry. And bauxite was a very important industry at the turn of the 20th century, in fact, throughout the 20th century, because bauxite was in demand. There was a demand for bauxite for the war efforts. And so bauxite was important, and Guyana, Jamaica, and Suriname had some of the best calcined bauxite in the world. I think they said Jamaica, the one in Jamaica, was of a little higher grade. But when I was a schoolboy, as many of you of my generation would remember, we always learned that Guyana, Jamaica, and Suriname are the best bauxite in the world. And so Linden, in that regard, is global because it was part of that first regional economic movement, because bauxite represented a movement away from sugar, an early movement away from sugar. Jamaica went farthest away from sugar to bauxite, banana, and then tourism. We didn't move from sugar for obvious reasons, ethnic reasons, but bauxite became central. And in many regards, people talk a lot about, and I'm bringing you in here, Pastor London, people talk a lot about sugar feeding Guyana, but they forget that bauxite eclipsed sugar at one time in terms of feeding Guyana. Because that bauxite in Jamaica and our bauxite in Guyana and in Suriname, great demand in the world. And so Linden then became part of that regional and global economy. Linden was, as we would say in Guyana, international during the 20th century. Sugar, of course, as Eric Williams have pointed out, it was the profits from sugar that financed British capitalism. Eric Williams wrote that book, Capitalism and Slavery. And his major argument, which still stands, is that British and European capitalism came from the sugar in the so-called New World. In the case of Britain, it was the sugar from the Caribbean, including Guyana, that gave the entrepreneurs in England the startup money for the industrialization of Britain. So that industrial revolution is linked with the production of sugar. And when we come to the 20th century industrialization in America and Europe and Canada, that 20th century industrialization is linked to bauxite. And Linden is located there. Let's see. Pastor London, you're back with us?
I cannot say that this is unusual. It happens.
We speak and struggle through with it because it's essential what you have to say. Yeah, continue where you left off in terms of Linden, located in Linden.
Yes, sir. And the importance, even in reference to our sporting culture, is so rich. Yet the decency, the basic decency to say to us in Linden, this is the structure, this is what it would look like in reference to Mackenzie Sports Club. That was not even afforded the people of Linden, that basic form of respect. I was discussing with a resident today who's concerned, an older man, and he was wondering about what will happen to the Mackenzie Sports Club as we know it. It has already been changed. It's no longer Mackenzie Sports Club. It's actually a cricket stadium. Further to that, I asked of him, what happens to our youth in the community where now it is a cricket facility in the heart of our town, and they have no ground on which you're going to play football or soccer, which is the main sport played here in Linden? He couldn't answer because he doesn't know the answer. We have not been furnished with that kind of information. There is at what is called Bay Rock, a tartan or a synthetic track where there's a football field, but the youth would not be allowed to practice there because that is going to be one for international matches and so on. So here again, Linden is being targeted for exclusion and all manner of unusually disrespectful treatment. And we have a right as a people to understand the role we play and how significant we are in the economics and the politics of this country. I think the only leader in our history, and I would say this probably to the chagrin of many, who understood the value of Linden is Forbes Burnham, hence the name. Many didn't get it. He saw geographically how we position. We touch many different regions. Region 7, Region 6, Region, I think 4. We touch so many of them. And in truth, you cannot access many of them by road unless you pass through Linden. Yet we have the bridge, which I hope you'll talk about, where Ali came here and acted as though he is responsible for having this Wismar-Mackenzie bridge, the 4-lane, being constructed. There is no shame. There's no limit to the extent to which this PPP would go to embarrass themselves in it as it relates to Linden. Jaglio said he's the one who developed Amelia's ward. Really? That was Forbes Burnham. But because of who we are, and I must say to people that ethnically, Linden has got by percentage the most African Guyanese as opposed to any other ethnic group. And that is why I believe we fall so properly, I should say, in the hands of those who are ethnically, who are challenged to respect us as a group of people, because of who we are and the demographics of our society, which we're trying desperately to change, but it would not change so easily. And so Linden has been suffering immensely in many ways. We have a situation whereby the garbage in our community is not being collected in many instances. I have to find ways and means of having it. A simple thing as having garbage being collected in the 21st century, in an oil-rich economy, we can't have. The Watukude Primary School, I showed a video today, a bat dung infested classroom for 5-year-olds. We were told that this class is ready. And I serve as the president of the PTA, the chairman of the PTA of the school. And I was there today and say that no child, teacher, parent, or janitor shall enter that room, that grade 1 block, because it is infested with, I mean, bat dung, and bats are everywhere in the ceiling. Bat dung has fallen, and they don't mind. They have the mind to say to us that our children, predominantly African Guyanese children, should be in that room. That is how disrespectful these people are to us here in Linden. By the way, that school, Watukude Primary School, is less than 2 minutes away from where Irfan Ali was. Boasting about the 4-lane bridge, but look at what happens in a school where our children have to be. And I asked the question on this platform tonight: does Irfan Ali or pre-Manik Chan's child sit in any classroom that looks like that? And the answer is obviously no.
The answer is obviously no. As singing Francine said, equal wrongs. The wrongs masquerading as equal rights, and they are committing the wrongs. And that is why we want to bring to the fore, not because, as they say, we are race baiting, but because we want the reality of race. The reality of race, we are not denying, because they're class dynamics. If you want to talk about class, correct. Linden is at one time, Linden was a class apartheid place. The rich lived in a certain part and the poor couldn't go there. So don't tell Linden people about class. Don't tell Linden people, they know that. But they also know race when they see it. They also, because wrapped up in that class thing was the white man, I forget his name, who would go into the nurses' quarters at night and take advantage of them. And the nurses, Askrea called strikes. I forgot G-Lot. The G-Lot, I think, was the man's name, and so on. Askrea had about 3-4 strikes during the late 1960s. So there was class and there was race, because there were these white Canadians, right, who were not acting as upper class people. They were acting as white people. All right? So Linden know about race and class. Linden know about race and class, and by extension, Guyanese. Good evening, Tori. Good evening, all the Linden people who are making themselves known here tonight. We love you all. We always love Linden. Pastor, you started by talking about the bridge, and Irfan Ali going there and pamposetting himself about the PPP doing all this wonderful thing for Linden. I know, like me, you don't get into this thing that when the coalition they build 2 bridge and though you come in. I know you're not into that kind of politics, but sometimes the truth must be told. That bridge is not the brainchild of the PPP. Talk to us.
More importantly, that bridge was on the table. The feasibility study was done. The financing, the funding for the bridge would have been secure. And the PPP removed it from the budget. Now let's deal with the facts as they should be presented here. APNELC did not remove it. The PPP on 2 occasions did not even mention Wisman-Mackenzie Bridge in the budget presentation. Ashley Singh didn't do that. How can you tell me now that Irfan Ali could show up here in this town and at this moment present the face to say that this is what we are doing for Linden? More than that, Dr. Hines and viewers, let us get to the truth of how Guyanese ought to begin to process. And I said it today because the taxi drivers are protesting at the bridge. And I said it to them today. We have to understand that any project of this nature, it is our money being spent. This is not APNFC or PPP or anybody is spending for us. We must get the conviction that this is the people of this country who are going to be responsible for this project being realized. It is going to be managed by the state or arms of the state. But let us have our people become awakened again to understanding the significance of your role in this society. You control the economy of this nation. You have given political figures the right to manage that based on what you allow them to do. We have to get back to that place, lest we find ourselves saying that APNU did this for us or the PP did it for us. No, we did it through their leadership. We have to make demands, and we have to ensure that our demands are met. But for Irfan Ali to present himself to Linden to say that he is now signing this document, this historic moment for a 4-lane bridge to be built here in Mackenzie, tell us, who removed it? Who removed it from the budget in 2021? Who removed it in 2022 when this is public knowledge? There were calls repeatedly, even by me, to say to them, how could this be fair to us when this bridge, again, links so many other regions in this country in terms of wealth, in terms of economics? The Demerara Harbor Bridge, the Berbice Bridge, does not have the kind of resources flowing through it or crossing it as this bridge. Diamond and gold, timber, now stone, sand, the aggregates, all are trucked across this bridge, even from Brazil. They're passing through here to finance the big boys in Georgetown projects. And you don't have the decency to say that you are thankful that APNU AFC would have thought about this, the leaders thereof, and they put it on the table, and hence we have seen the wisdom in having this presented. That is what I call mature politics. And that's why Guyana will continue to suffer until we have mature politics. And I was excited when I heard you speaking earlier in reference to your piece. That was a lot. To say that I, like you, would remove the system we have today in this country called politics. It is garbage. It is filth. It is cesspool worthy. It doesn't benefit Guyanese. It benefits a group who thinks they're in charge of Guyana. Our culture politically has to change. What is wrong with Irfan Ali on admitting that, number one, this was born under APNU AFC? Secondly, they removed it. Well, you wouldn't say that. That we didn't mention it in 2 budgets presentation. You wouldn't say that, but fine. You know what? That you didn't do it. And then say that you were thankful, at least, that this can now be realized. What would it cost Irfan Ali if you were to say that? He would think that it's complementing the APNU AFC to the detriment of the PPP, when it would be you're being a grown man who can speak the truth. You have 2 sons. Don't forget that. And if you teach them to lie and to be strangers to the truth, don't chastise them when they become adults to do the same.
Apostle Nigel London here tonight. We're talking all things Linden and the hypocrisy of the PPP. Pastor London makes a very important point. If you really believe in equal rights, and if you really believe in one Guyana, you would say the APNU AFC started a project. We came in and we were able to continue and end that project. That is a demonstration of one Guyana. It's a demonstration that although governments change, we remain one Guyana. It shows the lie of one Guyana, because they have so many opportunities to show a real one Guyana, and they don't do it. My brother, this thing about buying votes, which of course goes beyond the buying votes, it's about buying people and buying people's dignity. is alive and well in Linden. You know, one of my Indian friends sent me a note a couple of days ago, Dr. Hines, the PPP is back in Linden, trying to get people to cross over. What you have to say about that? You know? So even the Indian comrades are recognizing the dance that the PPP is doing. They don't mean to tell us what's happening there in Linden, and if you can mix in this whole thing about the Linden town clock that they are trying to get put into place there in Linden.
I surely can. And it is obvious that the PPP has got a basic system by which they function. And that is they recognize the hierarchy thereof. They recognize that Linden has been economically depressed for so long that the average person in this town, maybe some of them who are totally unqualified in reference to being able to earn a living, they have got the mind to say that, listen, we can easily win you over. And they've done it, giving them contracts. I remember the three of them who stood at the local government election campaign when it finally came here at the Linden bus park. And all these men said was, listen, you have to vote PPP. You have to vote on March. You have to vote for PPP. And they're now contractors. I kid you not. They're building roads by simply getting up to say, vote for PPP. So the talk in Linden now among many is, listen, we have to eat. We got to eat the food. We got to eat. And in order for them to eat, they have to become prostitutes, I say, in reference to how they function. And this is disgraceful. It's uncultural. It is unlike us as a people. And that is why I'm thankful that there are only few of them. And what you see in Linden here is that there are many projects, as they would call them, but they're actually rewards. They're not projects. Mm-hmm. Because if you say that if I function in your party, I will get a contract, it's not a project, it's a reward. The focus for Jagdi and others is who supports them. I'm a businessman with 3 or 4 registered businesses, and I've never been called or had a text to say, report to this place, they're sharing out a cash grant for businesses. But I know of people who are being called by political agents with the PPP to say, come for some money. Why are you doing that? Why not advertise across the board? Because there is a reward system here in Linden. And that reward is for them to gain votes. So what will happen, some people believe, and they're convinced about this, that come election time, the PPP will know if they voted for them. That's how silly these people are. In their mind, they believe with all their heart that if we don't put an X or a mark, a content, and I just mark something, it doesn't matter what you mark. It'll be counted anyhow. And in their view, they have to do this if they want to tap into the money that's being shared. Not the policies that benefit the people, the money. I would present tonight a challenge to anyone who's viewing your broadcast or the rebroadcast, the replay, to name one person in all of Guyana, including Linden, who supports the PPP, and it's not for economic gain. Name one. I dare you, especially among the newcomers from Linden. So we have got a case now in which a town clerk has been appointed. Now there's a process to be followed here. And the town clerk has no qualms about saying that he supports the PPP. Linden is a town. Linden is not a PPP town. Linden is a township in Guyana. It's a municipality that the world knows is predominantly in reference to voting demographics. It's predominantly PNC or PNC. But yet the PPP in their wisdom thinks that it makes sense to appoint and to foist on a people without the councils having moments to deliberate and all of that, this town clerk. And he has the power to make certain decisions and whatever. For what reason? Why would you do that? Because again, it comes down to now, the one who has the power to be the administrator of the municipality is governed by one in Freedom House. So when Sharma Solomon, who's the mayor, would have an idea and a vision, Dominic Blair being the deputy mayor, and other councillors when they have ideas to have certain projects being executed here in Linden, then there is an agent of the PPP who is known to be an agent of the PPP, who speaks on behalf of the PPP alone. That person is here. The town clerk sat the other day on NCN to promote the PPP. So how can we say then that projects and community development efforts in Linden under this town clerk gospel would be directed towards oneness? This is unhealthy for our. If we now have the PNC in terms of Sharma saying, listen, you want to represent the PDP? Well, we're going to challenge you at all costs. What happens to our community? Again, I say, when you have got the equal wrongs, there are people who suffer are those who have nothing to do with the decision making. And the votes in Linden, therefore, will be purchased if an administrator in the municipality is an agent of the PPP. It's obvious, because he would have access to decisions, access to local government ministry. He can call up somebody in Georgetown to say, give this one that, or he will receive a call, as a matter of fact, to say, give this one that, do this, do that, do not allow this to happen. And I can mention it because I don't speak in codes. GASPA has no power to say no to anybody in the PPP, not even the lowest level of person, none. And he's a town clerk. Would he be willing to stand and say that he defends the cause of Linden? For example, can the town clerk in GASPA, who knows that the Wismar-Mackenzie Bridge generates so much money, that's how they get paid, can he stand to say at any forum that this must not be controlled by NISL? What is wrong with us in Linden? What makes us so intellectually deficient that we cannot manage a bridge? Georgetown must manage Wismar-Mackenzie Bridge. Why can't the town clerk say that this has to be within the remit and under the power of the council, not NISL? Why must every month NISL have to give them a little small piece to keep themselves afloat? Why doesn't he open his mouth and speak to that, as a man should? Why can't he speak to the fact, as a town clerk, that I pay rates and taxes every year, but I can't have my garbage collected because persons in a local government ministry refuse to release the funds to have enough trucks available to collect our garbage in Linden? He can't speak to that either. Why can't he speak to the fact that in the township, in the heart of the town itself, our drains are clogged? We have no vision, it seems, in reference to our riverfront. This community has a river running through it. Beautiful. The Demerara River. Do you know what it would be like if you have got boardwalks and cafes set up along the river where people can sit and watch the boats pass and you can have entertainment? He cannot demand that. What he has to do is sit and wait until somebody decides that it could happen. And then he will say, well, this is a PPP project. But even if that were to happen, I can promise you, Dr. Hines, that it would be not a project, it would be a reward. Somebody who's faithful to the PPP would receive it, because he would never give it to one who criticizes. And my final point on this note is this. I would like any member of the PPP in the council or anywhere else to tell me of one person in Linden who has criticized the PPP and received the contract. Name one. Just one. What does that tell you?
Apostle Nigel London here tonight. We're talking about Linden. We're talking about the machinations of the PPP in Linden. We know that part of the PPP's modus operandi is to try to buy votes. And in Guyana, buying votes mean buying people who do not normally vote for you. And it's a really ugly device that is being used by the PPP. And it's unforgivable It's I will forgive the PPP for a lot. The one thing I will never forgive them for is giving their knowledge of our history to engage that device of going into black communities and trying to throw money at them. It's really an appeal to what racists always think about black people, that we can be bought. And it goes back to the old thing that all your people sell you all in Africa.
Right.
That's where they got that nonsense from. And the PPP is using it in the 21st century. It's ugly, it's nasty. And while I will abuse the victims of it, I think the PPP, the perpetrators of it, are the real cruel human beings in this entire thing. Pastor, we woke up to the news today that Mike Pompeo is on a private visit to Guyana. You know that story because you are one of the few people who has the courage to talk, the real talk about what happened between March and August 2020.
Yes.
Mike Pompeo on a private visit. Should Guyanese tune in?
They should tune in to the Treasury or to the Natural Resource Ministry, or to some private figure, which would more than likely be the case, some member of the private sector commission who has some claim of some gold or some oil block somewhere along the line, and who will be able to filter Pompeo's reward to him.
That's right.
I see no reason for a former Secretary of State in Mike Pompeo to come to Guyana, apart from for
his private capacity.
His reward in his private capacity.
Yes.
He isn't coming here in his political capacity. He's coming here in his private capacity, as was the visit by the president of the Caribbean Court of Justice, and I have an issue with that too. But Pompeo, Mike Pompeo, is known to be the figure who came here and destabilized our nation. That's what he did. He came here and made a decision that plunged Guyana into the chaos we see today. And for him to return 3 years later on a private visit, it must be to receive his just reward. For I see Mike Pompeo having no interest in this country, none whatsoever. He has no friend here. And if Irfan Ali or Jagdi want to suggest that they have become friends with Pompeo, it makes it worse for you. Because what made you become friends? Why isn't he coming to see Granger? Why isn't he coming to see Norton? Why isn't he coming to visit you? Why is he not coming to visit a Prodigy or somebody? Why is he not coming to have a conversation among those circles? What would make Pompeo have such interest in coming to Guyana at this time? At this time, after 46, maybe more oil discoveries have been made. 11 billion barrels of recoverable oil is there. Gas to boot. Gold and diamond is going nowhere. What would bring him here? This man is coming, as would have been many others, to receive his just reward. And I must say on your broadcast, they can come after me as they promise they'll come after people. I also expect to see Sarah Anlage coming at some point on a private visit. Because after all, more than anybody, she deserves to be rewarded, if she hasn't been already.
Apostle, it bothers me. It bothers me the transactional nature in which the PPP is governed in Guyana bothers me, because as a Guyanese, that's the only place that I can call home. Right. And when we have a government that is going to transact away our country, our patrimony, it's chilling. It's chilling. When you look at Ralph Gonzalez and the way he's behaving, you look at Mia Motley and the way they're behaving, they've all realized We don't have to love these people in power. The nature of these people in power is one in which ya you, ya me, as we say in Guyana. And the president stood up today and told the media that this man stood up for us in 2020. They're not even hiding it.
No. And that is the frightening truth, that Ali doesn't process. I mean, I may be guilty of saying things on your, and please, let me issue a disclaimer.
No,
these are
you
my
go right ahead. I have a broad shoulder.
And that's why I like dealing with it, because I think there are very few men of your caliber, in reference to social status, who can speak the way you do, and without fear or favor. If an Ali doesn't process, I am convinced he doesn't have the ability to process before he speaks. I'm convinced. And that's why Jagger doesn't put him before the press very often, because he doesn't process. How can you say that this man stood for us? Who us? Who? Who? Because I want Ali to tell me who benefited from Pompeo's initial visit. Why did he show up here?
Yes.
When Granger was not the meeting office, as they put it to be, when Granger was awaiting decisions to be made, when Granger obviously knew that Lowenfield, being the chief elections officer, had a duty to the law, not to a party, to do that which the law required. Suddenly, Pompeo showed up here to have conversations. And when he left, the PPP would have been in power as they see it. And then Irfan Ali, being the typical person he is, would say to the press that Pompeo stood for us. I asked the question, who did he stand for? And who is he returning to see?
To see. To see. You know, my brother Jimmy Carter came here and brokered some agreements between the opposition, the then opposition, and the government. He came back, he tried to broker, but he never came for any private visit.
No.
Jimmy Carter never came for, whether we like him or like what he did, depending on which party, he never came back for a private visit.
Man, listen, I feel it, and let me just be raw and real. I believe that it would be better off to have a jet, take his reward. Do that. But don't insult me and disrespect me to this extent whereby Pompeo could come here on some private visit. What does he have to see in Guyana here that would interest him? What is happening in Guyana that would interest Pompeo?
We don't have beaches. We don't have beachfronts.
What do we have?
Notorious.
What do we have here? Look at the state of this country. Look at the state of Georgetown. Because, of course, PNC is running Georgetown now, so you won't fix it. Look at the state of the Mayor and City Council building. What is he coming to see? I can tell you what he's coming to see. The reward for him standing for the PPP. That's what he did. Because if Pompeo wants to suggest to me that he acted then in the interest of what is called a democratic process, then by right, we have to allow the will of the people to stand. And that may take me ahead of where you want to go in reference to even the Argyle Agreement. Because I never knew as Guyanese that Irfan Ali ever once even had a text message sent to Guyana to say, what are your views? What should I go to Ralph and have a discussion with Esekibo? Who gave Ali the right? And this is the typical PPP nature here now. Again, their attitude is being shown. They believe in presidential diplomacy. They don't believe that anybody in foreign affairs has sense to go and speak on Guyana's behalf. So any issue, Ali has to go to talk. So who gave him the right to broker some agreement with Farab Gonzalez and Maduro? Maduro went there with a referendum result to say that's what the people want. What did Ali go with? So here again, Pompeo is coming to engage Irfan Ali and others. To what end? Where?
We seem to have lost We seem to have lost the audio there of Apostle London, where we seem to have lost him there. Pompeo will come, Pompeo will go. But you know what? You know what, Audrey Garraway? You know what? These people will sell our country. Once anybody's prepared to help them to maintain power, they are prepared to sell us down the drain. Whoever is going to help to maintain them in power, it is now open. The world knows that. And they're all lining up. They're all lining up. That is where we're going with this PPP. I am not a big, election man, but election is the only means by which we can remove this government, and we have to let them go. I don't believe in exchange. I don't believe you throw the PPP and bring in the PNC and that will solve our problems. But I do believe the PNC got to go. The PPP, sorry, they have to go. They're going to sell us to any little two-bit person. Once their all objective is to remain in power, to rape the resources of our forefathers, our foremothers, because that oil and those oil resources is to them. Them ex-enslaved people, those ex-indentured people, they made the sacrifice for this oil that we get in now. And the PPP is prepared to give it away to any two-bit person who helped them to stay in power. And that's why they have to go. I repeat, I'm not a big election man, because elections that are exchanged, that don't turn me on. If elections lead to change and transformation, I'm there for election. I am not for election for the sake of election. If election leads to transformation, fundamental change for the better, I for election. But in Guyana, election not for that. But even as a non-believer in stupid election, I think the PPP gotta go. If elections are the only way to change government, and that's what they gotta go, because they're going to sell us down the drain to any little boy or girl anywhere in the world who help them to remain in power. I think my brother is back here.
Yes, I am. Thank you. We have as a people, I think the time has come, and here you speak to election. The time has come for Guyanese to recognize, regardless of your ethnic background or history or whatever, you have to recognize that your country is being sold. Your country is on the bargaining table. Your resources, which are they're non-renewable, it is being bargained for. And this is not even about bidding. This is about a reward system. The PPP hierarchy, the hierarchy has no issue with saying, since you give us this, we'll give you an oil block through an agent. They have no issue with that. And the Guyanese will have no problem with being told Pompeo is coming to see his reward. Of course, we cannot write his name on anything, but you are the person, you'll be the front man or the front woman. So through you, he'll receive his reward. They have no issue with that, because I know of many cases in which that was done. They have no problem with doing it. I know of persons who said plainly, listen, when I see people thief, they thief for build house for woman. That's what they said. In our Guyanese vernacular. That's what they said. They say, I don't know for thief. That's what they said. You don't know the thief. They say, when you thief, you build house for your girl or your bear car. They say, when we thief, generations will never have to work again. These are the people process. And this is what one of them said. That y'all don't know how to thief. because you're scared of money. They say when we thief, our great-great-great-great-grandchildren will never have to work. Do you see the difference? Because what they said is the truth. We have a people who will give away everything so they can remain with what they have.
We're up against it, and we've got a good evening to all of you, and I know you all have stayed over time with us tonight, but it's worth it. Good evening, Didi. Good evening, Cheryl Sampson. If it's this Cheryl Sampson, Cheryl, good evening. I haven't seen you for a long time. You're one of the stalwarts. If it is the Cheryl Sampson, PNC member, former member of parliament, one of the leaders of the women's arm of the PNC, and a real grassroots leaders. The reason I always remember Cheryl, I remember when things were bad, when the PNC was down and out, and you know, Corbyn was almost a lonely man. Cheryl is one of those persons you see walking with me in wherever he went. And I always remember that sight. So Cheryl, if it's you, good evening, my sister, and welcome to Politics 101. Pastor, our Dr. Gonzalez was caught in a picture with a map of Venezuela that included Essequibo, and he said, I didn't notice it. You buy that?
I cannot, because he is mendacious. He's a liar by profession. Gonzalez is a dishonest person. Gonzalez is a criminal in my mind. Gonzalez is a trickster. He's a phony. And for him to tell me, as the man who brokered the Argyle Agreement, he is unaware of what Essequibo would look like when it's attached to Venezuela. Gonzalez should be, I can't say, but Gonzalez should be dealt with in a manner that we wouldn't have to hear from him again. Because this man, again being a friend of the PPP, has no shame. Let us not forget, I said it earlier, that the head of the PPP in Bijagdio had the face to say that he is the one who founded and developed Amelia's War. Imagine in an age where information is so readily available that this man would say that. Imagine that Ali and others would say that they are in no way discriminating against African Guyanese when they can only show me one group of African Guyanese who own an oil block. One. And they cannot be people who are against PPP either. When he cannot show me five, I've asked them for 3 years now, please name, let me bring it out to two then. Please name 2 African Guyanese who own a significant portion of the shore-based facilities. You can't even name one. He isn't discriminating, but he can't name again 3 African Guyanese contractors who consider they're on par with his big boys. But you're not discriminatory. So Gonzalez fits perfectly in the PPP's nature. They're of the same kilt. And these people are so dangerous in Rav Gonzalez that he would do this to gain something from Venezuela and have the nerve to say that he's friends of Guyana. That's the kind of person you're dealing with here. And yet Anil Nandalal and Ali, probably more than likely Jagdi, agreed for this man, Gonzalez, to remain as the person who should be responsible for this border issue. When he doesn't know what the border looks like. Let me take it further then. If he is unaware of what this looks like and he didn't know, then how can you be the one who's speaking to negotiations and peace regarding Essequibo, the region of contention? If you don't know what the region of contention looks like, if it is removed from Guyana and attached to Venezuela's map, how can you then say, Maduro, you stepped out the line here because here you have a map that includes Essequibo and this isn't right? And he stood there smiling because Gonzalez, I say again, is by nature mendacious. He is a liar.
Pastor London, Apostle London, thank you so much for answering my usual late call, but being here and bringing your perspectives to bear when the history of this period of our history is written, and I know that it will not be long before the history of this period is written. Your contribution and others like you would loom large. I am confident, I am very sure that yourself and others, Brother Rickford Burke and Ben Shop and all the other social media influencers, as they are dubbing us now, that we will be seen along with the people, the throngs of people, the scores of people. They don't have to call us influencers. It's not by saying we don't talk to nobody, we don't influence nobody.
Right.
But the numbers don't lie. They just come on there and they got access to the numbers even more than me and you. They know how many people listen to you and watch you and me more than me and you. Because I know learning to add up all the things. They know it.
Right.
They know it. And we, along with the viewers, are barricades against the demolition of our country. We, all of us, are barricades, and we've got to take this one step. The PPP got to go. And Apostle London and myself are not, and I know I can speak for us. We are not your usual election kind of people that say vote them out and bring in the other side. So when we say vote them out, it's profound. It's not lampy-pumpy nonsense when we say vote them out, because they're a danger to the very existence of our country. My brother, your closing thoughts.
I must say again, thank you for having me here. And whenever you do, reach out to me, even if with 1 minute's notice. I will always make an effort, because I admire the fact that you are in no way afraid to say exactly what you want to say and what you should say, and that you have the uncanny ability to really speak to matters in a very intellectual way. Sometimes I grieve for those who cannot relate to that which you say, because it's so simple yet intellectual. To those who are Guyanese at heart, as they say they are, or Guyanese by birth, I beg of you to please see the plight that faces our nation. Please understand there's a plague in the nation called the hierarchy of the PPP. They are dangerous and they're detrimental. And also please understand that the antidote to that plague seems to be off the shelf in reference to the opposition and what they're doing. I ask of you, opposition members, especially the leader, to see the need to arise with greater strength, to do something of greater force and impact, to remedy this train wreck. This is a catastrophe not waiting to happen, that has already begun to unfold. Guyana is not for sale. Guyana is not going to be on the market for anyone's benefit but our people. I say to you again, let us stand, let us unite. And as the song rightly said, let us cooperate for Guyana. Let us cooperate for our land. This is we own. And if it's ours, then we all have a right to defend her, even from the hierarchy of the PPP, the most destructive bunch this nation's ever seen. They have to go. They must go. By all means, they have to leave, lest you will not have a Guyana to inherit. Thank you.
Thank you much. Thank you very, very, very much, my brother. Sentiments which I share, they have to go. And I intend to give every ounce of my energy to that campaign. That campaign for the PPP to go. I'm not waiting until the election day announce. We start now. We start now. These people are dangerous every day. Every day is becoming self-evident. And we cannot play politics with this. We cannot play. This has to do with our very lives. Anybody can walk off the road and come here and stretch their hand because they help the PPP to stay in power. And we Guyanese, the people of Linden, the people of the rest of Guyana, catching their ass every day. Mr. Mike Pompeo didn't come for 6.5%. But that's what they're giving. Our people. You all get up. I know you all are ready. But sometimes we fall into a sense of false security. We get dazzled by the changes that we have seen in Guyana. Those changes you've seen in Guyana are not happening because of the PPP. It's happening in spite of the PPP. The economists will tell you that change sometimes happens not because of a government. What governments can do is speed up that positive change. So those of you who are overseas and you go home and you see some physical changes in Guyana, yes, don't deny it. Change is happening. All that money in Guyana, you're bound to have change. But it is not because of the PPP. Some of those changes started under the coalition. So do not be fooled. Do not be fooled. Do not be dazzled by some of the outward changes that you're seeing. Our country is in trouble. And you're seeing it every day. And this bunch in office, they have to go. I have friends who are all PPP people, former ministers, old stalwarts. I still consider some of them my friends. I had great difficulty with them when they were in power. But I never imagined that when they would be shoved out, because they were shoved out, the Ramatars and the Rohis and others have been shoved out. That when they were shoved out, that we would be saddled with these recalcitrants. The campaign has started. Don't wait for the bell to ring. We got to fix the election machinery. We got to cut off the flow of illegal votes that are going into the PPP as we speak. It has to be the single most important thing that we do is to clean the machinery, the electoral machinery. They have GCOM ready and waiting to deliver the election to them. The only reason they're not calling the election this year is because we cut off some of the energy to them. We went to the very Americans, we went to Black Americans and said, you all are our brothers and sisters. And if you all are fighting for human rights in America, look what's happening to your brothers and sisters in Guyana. That's what we did, and that's what scared the hell out of them. I can say it. I don't expect the others to say it. And because we talk to our brothers and sisters in America, and they have access to American government, because the PPP is depending. They want a Pompeo to help them in 2025. And we are cutting off the Pompeos from them. By talking to our natural allies. You all tell them, David, I said so. Our strategy was exactly that, to talk to our comrades, our blood brothers and sisters. That's why they want to kill Rickford Burke. You think they're going after Rickford Burke because he said, you know, they're racist? No, he didn't just say they're racist. He cut off the pipeline. That's why they're not calling the election this year. They're ready at GCOM to rig the hell out of the election. And the reason they're not going with the election this year is because we cut off the energy from them. They were hoping to find the Pompeos in America to help them with the election. And we cut the energy off from them. I tell them I said so, and I talking it publicly. The others may not want to say it publicly. That's their business, that's their politics. I saying it openly. That's what we did. That's why they can't call the election this year. They wanted to call the election this year and rig the hell out of it. Thief man, I like to see. You like you catch them with bag. These people are dangerous. They're dangerous. They're going to use this Venezuela thing to get military support from other countries, and they're going to use it to keep them in power. We want the army to be beefed up. We want the army to get proper weapons. We want the army to become a fighting army. But we have to be very careful because the PPP want the army to defend them, not to defend Guyana. We want the army with proper preparation to defend Guyana. The PPP want the army to defend them. We are in the fight of our lives. But we have fought down dictators before, from the Middle Passage to now, and we got to fight them down. They like to get us off there because they don't want me to tell you all what I'm telling you all tonight. They would rather that not happen. And they don't get anybody to match us. Let me talk for real now. When our foreparents, when our mothers, our grandmothers were making the investments in us by sending us to school, and said, go to school, learn to read and write, but also learn not to let people make you an ass. We are seeing the product of that today, and they can't match we. They can't match we. So they want to kill we. We're not giving up. Not a blade of grass. Is not only not a blade of grass to Venezuela, we must not give up one damn blade of grass to the PPP. Not a blade of grass we must give up to the PPP. Brother Gaspar in Linden, I remember going there to speak a couple of years ago. There were about 30 people we were speaking to and all. He came to the meeting. He said, Dr. Hines, what you are saying here tonight, all of Linden should hear it. And he put me in a vehicle and he took me to the television station, the radio station, and organized an interview for me to speak to the people of Linden that night. That was under the coalition government. He was then a coalition supporter. He has a right to decide which party he wants to support. I don't have a problem with that because I don't think he's a bad man. But the PPP can make people look bad. And that's what they're doing to people like Gaspar. And while I may be disappointed at my brother Gaspar, I am enraged at the PPP for taking their eyes and past black people. They believe every little black boy and little black girl can be bought. And that is an affront to my dignity as a black man, and it ought to be an affront to your dignity as black people. An affront that you believe that all I am worth in life is a few pieces of silver, not gold. Martin Carter said, the mouth is muzzled by the food it eats. Bob Marley said, in the abundance of water, the fool is thirsty. Because at the end of the day, they're trying to get us to make ourselves fools. And we are not fools. We may be many other things. But fools we are not. Stay with us. Stay with us. I am not on the sidelines. We are not on the sidelines. We're in the mix of things. It takes all our energies. All our energies it will take to remove these people. They have to be removed. The elections have to be turned into a revolution. Revolution is not dead. Maybe the old-time revolution where you go in the hills and fight as guerrilla, that may be dead. But revolution is not dead. And we must turn the elections into a revolution. Which means that we have to clean up that electoral machinery. First and foremost. And then we have to use our votes to destroy, use our votes to destroy this evil empire. Tomorrow night, my brother Henry Jeffrey is going to be here. Late in the week, Professor Thomas is going to be here. I'm trying to get David Patterson to come on for us to talk about some of those projects that were started under him that they're talking about now. Takumo Gunsi and Vincent Alexander, they're going to be, we're all-star this week, all-star this week, all-star. We got to keep jamming. We got to keep jamming. Because they don't want us to jam. I love you all. I love you all. And tomorrow night, we're going to be doing this again. The hundreds of you who have stayed almost an hour beyond program time. My apologies to Sherrod, but he know we doing this together. You are going to view Sherrod. You are going to view Sherrod as a replay tonight. Because when your lefty is over to Mark Benchop, tell him good night for me. I love you all and see you all tomorrow night.